Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what we're doing is we're making a lacto fermentation
Mm-hmm.
of vegetables. And we've chosen to ferment some cucumbers we bought at the farmer's market and some okra.
Mm.
And you can do many other things. Here's some examples of some end of the season. We had a lot of green tomatoes that were going to die in the vine because the frost was coming, so we picked them all and fermented them. They're very good. Some cherry tomatoes. This is a more recent one, and I just fished in here, so it looks very cloudy, of okra, what it might look like when it's done. Just like a regular okra, but the color changes a little, becomes a little more dull. Now, at the end of the fermentation, when you put it in the refrigerator, it does tend to clear like this. So the liquid's very clear of how it's. And what's happened is the products have fallen to the bottom. You can see them down there. And that's good. The white is good. That's good bacteria. And during the fermentation, it will actually look quite cloudy like this. So in the next couple of days while you're watching it, it will look like this, and that's fine. And that's a sign that the bacteria is keeping it going. Things are moving around, there's stuff happening. And when you put it in the fridge, it will clear out, it will settle down. All right, so what we're doing, this is impromptu. We didn't have a chance to go out and buy new dill and new products, so we used some from an old fermentation. But what we're trying to do with the lacto fermentation is take the existing lactobacilli that are naturally found on fruits and vegetables and give them the right environment so they multiply. And they produce lactic acid. And so what we were doing here is you can start with fresh vegetables and just put them in salt water and hope for the best, and it will probably turn out, because all fresh vegetables have lactobacilli on them. And the purpose of fermenting is to help those multiply. However, the more sure way of doing it, and you generally get a better fermentation, is to use a starter. And this is product from an existing fermentation, which I have some in there, and I'll put some more in there. And now I'm already starting with a lot of good lactobacilli. So I'm just hedging my bets. I'm making it more probable that it'll be very successful. And what I've put in here, since we didn't have time to go buy some of all the ingredients, I borrowed some from this old one, which is maybe cheating, but it's okay. I put some dill in here, a lot of garlic, and that's very good. And then there's some little things like some mustard seed. You have to be careful. If you put too much in, it'll taste off. And importantly, there's leaves in there with tannins. I use grape leaves. You can use oak leaves. Common would be grape leaves. And they keep it crunchy. The grape leaves interfere with some enzymes that would break down complex carbohydrates or other items that keep your vegetables stiff and crunchy, so they won't turn as soft and mushy. Everybody wants their pickles to be crunchy, right? All right. So once you have that started, the consideration is you just load it up. I have a pepper in there. I'm going to put another one. This is a pepper from the garden. Throw it in there just to give it a little spice. And the consideration when you're fermenting is you want to keep everything below the water level during the fermentation. You want nothing to poke up. So I'm going to save some of my bigger cucumbers to fit in there and jam in there to push everything down. Some people say, oh, get a glass stone and put it in there to weight everything down. I found that doesn't work very well because if you shake it, the stone falls and everything pops up. But most fruit, like this okra, has air in it, so it'll want to, it'll want to float. So it's a challenge to keep things down. And you notice I put the dill and the oak leaf down below because they're going to really want to float up. So dill seed's good. I like using a head of dill, but you can use any kind of herbs. Just remind yourself that anything that floats to the top you may have to pull out because it'll develop a white film on it.
I'm going to go for a walk real quick.
And it looks like we have too much. I over-guessed. So let me try to get some pickles in there because you've already tried the okra. You haven't had the pickles. So let's see how many pickles we can get in there. Not many. Challenge. Now, as far as sanitization, I've washed my hands very well, but it doesn't hurt to be very sanitized and maybe even use plastic gloves if you've been in the garden a lot digging and you're worried that you might have dirt under your nails, and keep it clean. Oh, I just pulled these out and I'm putting them back in.
And why are you doing this? This
Well,
kind of preparation?
Yeah, well, right here, I didn't think it through and I put way too many okra in. But see how I jammed that in? I'm trying to get it, the big things on the top were, they're not going to float up. So decrease the chance I'll have something float and cause. And even this, it doesn't, you can even do this. It's okay. It will ferment a little faster. But you know what? The first one you reach to try is going to be the one on the top, so that's okay. You can cut your pickles, you can cut your okra if you're too long. Okay, so you can even say, hey, I'm going to get a few more in there. Okay. I smushed that, so that's okay. And had I done a little better job, I might have put some in there, but it doesn't hurt. Now, the next step will be, and I'm hoping this is cold enough, in terms of water, you want sanitized water. You want water that is sanitized and doesn't have any chemicals you don't like. So tap water generally has chlorine. I like using reverse osmosis because it's very pure. The difference between reverse osmosis and distilled is very minimal. So here in this case, forgot to go buy some water, so I boiled some water earlier and I'm chilling it. You don't want it to get above, say, you don't want to put too hot of water in there because then you kill the beneficial bacteria. And that's not what you're trying to do. So room temperature is good. I'd say above 90 F Fahrenheit, you have to worry that you might be hurting it. However, I started with a very big starter, so I'm not adding much water. And this is cold. It was in the refrigerator. So even if this were a little hot, it might mix with that and force down. All right. So the right environment for the lactobacilli to multiply and there's two things we're trying to do. Is one, populate this with lactobacilli, which is good for you. The second one is to drop, and this happens at the same time, is to have the pH drop to around 4 or less and make it sour. That preserves it. It makes this a very safe dish. You could leave this on your counter for months and it's safe. However, the longer you leave it on the counter, the more sour it gets. So people typically put it in the refrigerator, which I did here. This is close to this is last fall. It is very crunchy still and very good. So the key with all your different things, you can ferment this, you can ferment carrot, sauerkraut's done this way. Almost all the lacto fermentations, it's the same basic principle. Vegetables, salt water. And the vegetables you want to get fresh, you want to have organic if you can, because you want them to have the bacteria on there. So if you don't have a starter, it's okay, it's on your vegetable already. But a starter helps it and just makes it more successful. Because every once in a while you may say you get a bunch from a farmer and he says it's very fresh and it's not as fresh as you think. So it guarantees success a little more often. So the key difference between all the different ferments, this included sauerkraut and other ones, is how much salt you put in. Here we're not drinking the juice, but the juice needs to get inside and there's a lot of liquid in here, so we go higher salt than if you were to make beet kvass, you would use 1% salt because you're drinking the juice. This, typically I use 3%, and it's by weight. So here I measured out 2,000 milliliters, 2 liters, and that would be 2,000 grams of water, correct? Mm-hmm. So if I want 3%, I want 60 grams of salt. And a scale is the best way to do it because all salts are different. Again, this is impromptu, I don't have a scale. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to estimate, I just looked up on the web what the most common answer was because it's different for different salts. And they say 17 grams for a tablespoon. I want 60 grams, so I'm going to put 3, almost 4 tablespoons in there. It seems like a lot of salt. It is. But it's okay, you're not drinking it. 1. And I'm going to be a little sloppy about it. 2. 3, and I was a little short on that other one, so I'll be grabbing that one. And that's almost 4. Okay, that's probably enough. All right, and I'm making way too much. I can see already I probably only need a liter. All right, and use any kind of sea salt. You don't want salts with anti-caking powders, or you don't want anything with iodine. That's bad. Right, common sense, use a sea salt. It doesn't matter what kind. This is Himalayan. You can pick a different type of sea salt. And again, I would make sure let me use the fork I had already been using and try to get this mixed up. If you heated your water up, don't worry about the thing floating in there. That's off the fork that came out of there. It's some dillweed. I'm not going to wait till it's completely dissolved. I just want to make sure it's in suspension at least. All right, now, I think I'll leave a little more headspace than that. Okay. These little things floating here, the seeds, because I broke that one open and cut it open, they're okay, but they might fuzz up a little. But I think you might have success. You never know until you try it. Oh, in terms of jars, I've tried this kind of jar, this kind of jar. This type of swing top jar, I've had total success with almost all the time. It's made for this. It lets the gas escape and very little in. These type of jars, even though you think you have it tight, stuff gets in. And almost always I open it up and there's white mold on there. If you open this up and there's a thin layer of white in there, don't be discouraged. I've heard people call it Cam's yeast. I'm not sure if it's a yeast or what it is, but you talk to many people doing this, oh yeah, that happens to me, it's no problem. You skim it off. Commonly when people make big batches of sauerkraut, they have to take the first layer off anyway because it's in contact with air. So then you put it on your counter and you walk away for 3 or 4 days, or you watch it for 3 or 4 days, and then you try it and say, oh, it's good, or it's not sour enough. If it's not sour enough, you wait longer. It's all about the temperature. In the summer, obviously, things will go faster, the bacteria responds to temperature. Cold temperature, they're very slow. Fast temperature, they're going really fast. So a couple degrees can make a big difference on how fast that ferments, and that's all there is to it. And you do the same with anything. Carrots, zucchini ferments really well. Obviously tomatoes. Anything that you can imagine would be crunchy and not just turning mush. A red tomato wouldn't. Although if you ferment red tomato, it turns into ketchup. So that's it. Lacto fermentation.